Day 3 did have a few notable matches in it. Most importantly, the rematch of last year's Scudetto final between Lube and Trentino. And I actually think that we learned quite a bit. Sorry, I apologize. We learned quite a bit from watching this match. I thought it was a really entertaining match. I thought it was a very entertaining match. And for me, there was a few things that were very, very clear when it came up to this match. Now, first and foremost, I think we are coming into maybe a new age of two very distinct superstars in this league. Two guys who are, maybe even three, we'll talk about a third in just a little bit, but two guys who are really at the top of their game right now. And if it wasn't apparent from the World Championships a little bit earlier this year, it has to be Alessandro Micheletto and Moni Nikolov. It was an absolute slugfest between these two stars. It was so much fun to watch. It was a back and forth match. Ultimately, it ended up being a 3-1 win for Lube, which is a really big bounce back match for them after they lost 3-2 to Perugia just this past weekend. So man, Lube getting the short end of the stick a little bit, going 1-2 within a week's time. Perugia and Trentino coming out of it on the other side 1-1. Not too bad at all. 1-1 with 4 points. Not bad at all. First set was 25-23 for Lube, then 25-23 for Trentino, 25-22 for 25-23, 25-23 both for Lube. Then Trentino won the third 25-22, and then Lube bounced back and won the fourth 25-22. And I will say right now that I think that Lube really controlled the pace of play in this one. They really controlled the match from the get-go with their serving. And I don't think it's a stretch or a pop or a hot take at all to call Lube the best serving team in the LegaVolley and quite possibly the best serving team in the world. This is a team that brings so much heat from server to server that it's really difficult to handle them. It is really difficult to handle Lube, and that's kind of what we saw in this match against Trentino. And on the other side of it, it was just an absolute slugfest between Micheletto and Nikolov. Now, Micheletto was outstanding. He had 22 points. He was 17 for 23 with a 59% efficiency. He had 2 blocks and 3 aces. Nikolov, 29 points, a little bit more volume, 24 for 41 with a 56% efficiency. Both of these guys, between the two of them, they made 2 errors offensively, which is just ridiculous, and you absolutely love to see it. Just good volleyball all around. Nikolov also had a block and 4 aces. I mean, it's very clear to me that Micheletto is still quite the complete player, you know, especially with that efficiency that he had in this match. It was very, very good. Like, he is so deadly. And the reality is that he's not getting the same looks that Nikolov is, although Nikolov, I do think, is maybe a little bit better out of system than he is in system for some reasons. But Micheletto, you know, his passing is so strong. I think Nikolov only had like a few targets this entire match. Yeah, he only had 5 targets this entire match. They do a lot of good job hiding him. The new serving rules, I mean, both teams were really employing it that whenever either of those guys are passing in 6, as soon as that ball is tossed, they're switching with the libero and they're going into the one side when they're in the back row, mostly to be able to release them for that pipe ball. And it was, but Micheletto is out there passing balls. His blocking is a little bit stronger than Nikolov's, and his ability to serve aces after 20 is incredible. I mean, the whole reason that they won that third set is really because they stuck with Lube. Their passing was a little bit better early on. They were able to keep with them early on. They weren't playing catch up. And then Micheletto went back and absolutely dominated from the baseline to be able to put them ahead. But ultimately, to me, there's a few things that were very clear when watching how these two teams play, because they're very contrasting styles. Trentino plays like what I would consider as a very Italian style, right? Very similar to the Italian national team. They just execute at a really high level. They've got some good scorers everywhere, and they just execute at a really high level. They're not running the fastest offense. They're really centering their offense around Micheletto. But the issue for Trentino in this one specifically was A, passing, and B, that P2 position. And I don't think Ramon was terrible offensively. He wasn't great. He was 7 for 18. But for me, it was really in the passing. I mean, if you're watching on the screen here, you'll see Jordi Ramon on 17 targets, only 18% positive. And also, I do want to make just a quick side note, is that I don't think I'm going to be talking about perfect passing numbers all that much anymore. Mostly because I got a little note, always appreciated, from none other than Eric Shoji, who apparently has been listening. So Eric, appreciate you. And he was just letting me know that in terms of him and teams, they don't really look at perfect passing numbers. They mostly look at positive passing numbers. So I think, the perfect passing is like right on the head, right on the money. But the reality is that any setter worth their worth playing professionally should be able to run a full offense, 2 to 2.5 meters off the net. And that's kind of what he was saying. So once you're in that positive range, once you're around the 3-meter line, around that attack line, then your statisticians are going to start giving it into the negative. But anything, high enough within 2 to 2.5 meters of the setter in front of them in a decent spot is going to be positive, and that's what they can run an offense from. So we're going to mostly focus on from now on is that positive number. But yeah, Jordi Ramon, only 18% positive, and it was very clear that all game long, Lube was just going for that seam between Ramon and Lorenzano. They were just serving that seam, putting on so much pressure, not really letting Micheletto get into any type of rhythm. Especially since, the big reason that Lube is so good at serving is that they take off that heat or they add so much heat to it, and they're not really like a short serving team, right? If you wanted to be able to take Micheletto out of the play, you would serve it short, which in any case, with the way they're running it, it's probably just going to be taken by Lorenzano anyways. So it's way better just to go after Jordi Ramon. And now that was the big question for this Trentino team coming in, is could Ramon be good enough to play alongside Micheletto? He was always viewed as kind of being that third guy off the bench, but of course Lavia got injured. We saw a picture of Lavia earlier this week posted on social media, and he still has those fingers taped up. So I'm not entirely sure if there is a timeline for return for Lavia, maybe at all this season. I know it's a long season, but we'll see how it goes. But it's going to be a struggle for Trentino, I think, especially with the way that their gameplay is. They're so strong down the middle with Flavio, and I thought Simon Torvi coming in this match really did a good job. I really think he has to be the guy in the long term over Bella Bartha. But they just really couldn't get anything going offensively because they weren't in system. And it's not just the aces that Lube is scoring, as you're seeing out there. They had 8 aces to 26 errors, which is maybe not the best ratio that you're going to see, but the amount of pressure that they're putting on consistently. Trentino, only 30% positive in this match, right? So that's less than a third of the time that they are in system. And then they just go to a high ball offense from that. And, Théophore is getting his looks and getting some swings. He was 13 for 31. Not the best efficiency either, but he's swinging on a lot of out-of-system balls. And Lube, even though they're not out there getting a lot of blocks, they are still a pretty good blocking team. They're very active, and as soon as you take away that middle, right, once the passing is good, and that's exactly what we saw at the beginning of the third set, is once that passing is good and you have Flavio and Torvi activated, then Trentino becomes a lot more deadly, right? Because then you have some decisions to make in terms of the block. But otherwise, it is really, really difficult to slow down that Lube serving. And on the other side of things, they run such a fast offense. And they're really moving it around, right? All 3 of their outside options like hitting a fast ball. All 3 of their outside options, have decent ball control. And, they both teams are centering their offenses around one left side attacker. But I think Boniface, the big difference between the game on the weekend against Perugia and the game today on Wednesday against Trentino is how Boniface played and how he ran that offense. That offense was a little sloppy. against Perugia. And how good of a blocking team Perugia is, I mean, they're called the Block Devils for a reason. They're going to get you, right? They are going to get you. And that's kind of what we saw in this game. He cleaned it up so much better. And the way he runs that offense, it just keeps other opposing teams' middles just absolutely on skates. I think that everyone else on this roster is, you know, you pretty much expect, like, I'm sure they're going to have bad games here and there. But I think that, you know, of everyone on this roster, he is the biggest question mark. No doubt about it. And when he shows up like the way that he did today, and there's even some people in the Discord who were saying that, you know, this isn't quite the Boniface that we've seen just yet. Like, this isn't playoff mode Boniface. I don't necessarily agree. I thought he set a very, very good match. I did watch it back yesterday on Volley Metrics just to get that baseline view to actually see what's happening. I'm not going to harp on it. Just like it's almost impossible to watch volleyball from a sideline and actually understand what's happening in terms of how the offense is being run and the gaps that they're trying to see and all of these things. But when Boniface is precise, this team is very, very deadly. Very, very deadly. His decision making and his awareness and his feel for the game and his overall vision is so, so good. So when he is out there, and I mean, of course, he comes from a volleyball family. His father's coaching in the league, right? Or has coached in the league. No, is coaching in the league. And it's just all about his execution, right? His location is a little bit off. And that's what makes Lube so deadly, their ability just to spread that ball. And past Boniface, I think the real unsung hero in this match, and I mean, I heard that some Italian media people or TV people were giving Lepke a better grade for this match than Bottolo. And you guys know how I feel about Eric Lepke. This is a guy that I've known since he was a kid. I've watched him grow as an athlete and as a person, and I couldn't be more proud of him. But there's no way that you can tell me that Lepke is more important than Bottolo right now on this team. And if you look at how this team stacks up on serve receive, there's a lot of rotation where they essentially have a two-man serve receive between Bottolo and Balasso just taking up the majority of the court. And Nikolov and Lepke are kind of put off to the side a little bit. So Bottolo, to me, is such an important linchpin on this team. And I really bet that Trentino is looking at Bottolo in the way he plays in that P2 position, the way he passes, the way he serves, you know, the way he comes up clutch in out-of-system situation. They really think that, I bet you Trentino would love to have Bottolo. Like, if Trentino had Bottolo, that would be next level. And I think moving forward, it's going to be a very, very difficult decision for Di Giorgi to make between Bottolo and Lavia, especially the way that Bottolo is passing the ball right now. And if you look at his numbers from this one on 29 targets, and they are really going after him, 55% positive, 38% perfect. You know, that 38% perfect is just to really put home of how precise he's being in serve receive. And it's not like Trentino's a bad serving team either. You still have Micheletto, you still have Foch, you still have Simon Torvi, who's a good server. You know, Flavio is real tricky with that float serve as well too. So it's just Bottolo is really, really doing a good job. Balasso as well. I really wish, once again, I really wish we had dig numbers. To me, especially watching like the 22% positive from Balasso on 18 targets, it's really because, you know, he switches into that sixth position for serve receive. And when you're beating the serve, when you're Teofo or Micheletto, you're serving at six mostly, right? Like, you're looking to just put that ball in with a lot of pace. And Balasso is having to strap on some of the biggest servers in the game right now. So I think that's why we see his numbers maybe be down a little bit more. Whereas if you're a lesser, you know, strong server, you're going to go at Bottolo. But regardless, to me, as I said, I thought Lube really, really dictated the play of this match. A, because of their serving, and then B, just because of the pace of their offense, right? Their pace of their offense is so good, and then they're strong down the middle as well with Gargiulo and Woutahir. This is a really good team. right? I think that if Boniface can keep on playing this way, and that's not to say that he's not going to have up and down games, and same thing with other guys like Nikolov and Lepke and Botolo as well too. This is a very, very good team, and it was really fun to watch them play. And yeah, I think it was a really good bounce back game. And on the other side of the net, it's really just a tough spot for Trento, right? Because they had to go to an 18-year-old Andrea Gianni, no relation to the other Andrea Gianni, because, Jordi Ramon isn't passing the ball the way they need him to. And Gianni did come in and start that fourth set. He came in during the third to help solidify that serve receive just a little bit. Was all right offensively, but they're clearly not trying to give him the ball at all, but also really isn't present all that much on the block. So, Trento just in not great position, being a little bit skinny on the left side as well. So this Trento team, I think, is going to struggle unless they can find some backup on the left side, which, is pretty much impossible at this time. Unless you take someone in from China, but I don't know if there's any decent left sides who are going to be playing in China this year. And or if Jordi Ramon kind of steps up to the plate and starts passing that ball a little bit better. But I think it's going to be really interesting, their next matchup this weekend, because they're going to be taking on Verona. And as someone said in the chat, I do think that Verona is the second best serving team in the league, and we're going to touch on their match yesterday against Milano in just a little bit. But there's two things that Verona does similarly to Lube that might cause some problems for Trentino. Is one, they serve the shit out of the ball, right? They absolutely beat the ball. When you look at Mozic and Keita and Darlin or Sani, whoever they're using on the opposite, they used both yesterday. And they also run a really fast offense to the pins. So I did notice that, Trento blocking, they start quite inside. And Lube and Verona are two teams who really prioritize that pipe ball. So I think it's going to have to be the same thing where, you prioritize that first pipe ball and then go out, push outside real quick to try to stop the third tempo ball. But I think this matchup is going to be very interesting for both teams as we move over